Have you ever experienced a moment of déjà vu so sharp it stopped you cold, like reality blinked and repeated itself on purpose? Not the vague kind, the precise kind, the kind where your body reacts before your mind can explain it. Have you noticed impossible synchronicities stacking up lately? Thinking of someone seconds before they call, catching the same numbers again and again, feeling time stretch or compress for no obvious reason, like the world is subtly glitching around you. If you've experienced that, listen carefully. You're not crazy, you're not broken, you're not overthinking. You're perceiving something most people are conditioned to ignore. There's a reason you don't talk about this openly, because when you try, people dismiss it. They call it coincidence, stress, pattern seeking. So you stop explaining, you keep it to yourself, but the isolation you feel isn't social, it's perceptual. You feel alone because you're operating on a different frequency, and that difference is not spiritual fantasy. It's measurable, it's biological, and it's been quietly studied inside quantum consciousness research for decades. Here's the part that unsettles even scientists. In quantum physics, reality doesn't behave like a solid, objective thing. At the most fundamental level, particles exist as probabilities inside the quantum field until something happens. Observation, interaction, measurement. The moment an observer becomes involved, those probabilities collapse into a single outcome. That's called the observer effect, and it's not philosophy, it's experimentally verified physics. Reality changes when it's observed. That single fact shattered the old model of a fixed, independent universe. Now pause with that for a second, because if observation alters reality at the quantum level, then consciousness is not passive. Your perception matters, your attention matters, your subconscious mind matters. This is where mainstream explanations get uncomfortable and start to fracture. Experiments tied to quantum entanglement, non-locality, and wave function collapse began pointing toward a disturbing implication. Reality may not be creating consciousness. Consciousness may be participating in reality creation. Some of the most controversial papers exploring this connection were rejected repeatedly, not because they were wrong, because they crossed an invisible line. One submission was reportedly turned down 14 times, with the same reason stamped across the review: too metaphysical, not inaccurate, just dangerous to existing frameworks. Because once you admit consciousness plays a role in shaping reality, the entire model of how humans relate to the world starts to shift. And this is where it becomes personal. People who experience intense synchronicities, recurring numerical patterns like 1111, heightened intuition, vivid dreams, or time distortion often share another trait, a sense of spiritual awakening that feels more like pressure than bliss. You feel disconnected from routines, conversations feel shallow, the world feels slightly artificial, like there's a hidden reality running underneath the surface. That's not a flaw. That's what happens when perception expands faster than the systems designed to contain it. You feel alone because you're vibrating out of sync with your environment. In physics, systems that don't resonate don't merge, they interfere, so they separate. That separation hurts, but it's also a signal, because awareness doesn't expand randomly. It follows patterns, biological readiness, neurological sensitivity, and timing. What if 1111 isn't a message from outside you at all? What if it's a feedback signal, confirmation that your internal frequency is aligning with something deeper, something science has observed but hasn't fully explained yet, something that challenges everything you were taught about time, causality, and control? Stay with me. This isn't for everyone. But if this is resonating in your body, not just your mind, the next part will explain why it's happening now and what it's been preparing you for. Before we go any further, do one thing for yourself. Stay until the end of this video, because what I'm going to explain in the final minutes will completely change how you interpret every sign you thought was random. And once you see it, you can't go back. This is usually the moment when people think they're overthinking everything. When they tell themselves they're tired, stressed, imagining patterns that aren't really there. When they try to rationalize it away because admitting what's happening feels uncomfortable. But what's actually happening is far more specific. Your perception is expanding faster than your belief system can keep up with. If you keep seeing 1111 repeatedly, not once as coincidence but persistently across different days and situations, if déjà vu no longer feels vague but physical, like your body recognizes the moment before your mind does, if conversations feel slightly out of sync and people around you seem to be moving at a different rhythm, that's not anxiety. That's awareness sharpening. Neuroscience shows that when attention shifts, the brain reorganizes what it filters out. This is called selective pattern recognition, and it's the stage where consciousness becomes more sensitive to information it previously ignored. But here's where it goes deeper than psychology. Attention doesn't just notice reality. At the quantum level, observation participates in it. In the double-slit experiment, particles behaved as waves of probability until observation forced a single outcome. Unobserved, reality existed as potential. Observed, it collapsed into form. Your subconscious mind operates the same way. When distraction drops and awareness increases, it begins observing more consistently, and reality responds. That's why synchronicities don't appear randomly, but cluster together. That's why the feeling that something is about to change arrives before anything visibly does. The pattern itself isn't the message, the timing is. People entering an early stage of spiritual awakening often describe the same quiet symptoms: heightened sensitivity, more vivid dreams, a subtle emotional distance from routines that once felt normal. You don't feel better, you feel different, and often you feel alone. That isolation isn't a flaw, it's a frequency mismatch. In the quantum field, systems that don't resonate don't merge, they interfere, and interference creates separation. This is the exact phase where reality starts responding in whispers instead of words, through repetition, through numbers, through that persistent sense that something beneath the surface is shifting. And here's what almost no one tells you: the brain doesn't even notice these patterns until it's ready to reorganize itself. Which means, if this is happening to you now, you're already past the point of going back. And it only gets stranger from here. What most people misunderstand about seeing 1111 is that they assume something external is changing first. The number, the clock, reality itself. But that's not what the science points to. In 1801, long before spirituality entered the conversation, Thomas Young's double-slit experiment revealed something deeply unsettling. Particles behave like waves of probability until they're observed. When no one is watching, nothing is fixed. The moment observation occurs, the system collapses into a single outcome. Decades later, this was confirmed again and again, including refinements by John Archibald Wheeler, who showed that observation doesn't just affect the present, it defines what becomes real at all. This is the observer effect, and it sits at the core of quantum consciousness. Now bring that back to your experience. If reality responds to observation at the quantum field level, then awareness itself becomes an active force in reality creation. Which means 1111 isn't appearing more often. Your subconscious mind is no longer filtering it out. As consciousness expands, the brain reorganizes perception, attention sharpens, pattern recognition increases. That's why synchronicities cluster. That's why déjà vu feels physical. It's not superstition, it's perception recalibrating frequency. In 2022, Nobel Prize winner Anton Zeilinger openly stated that quantum entanglement proves there is no observer-independent reality. Information, not matter, is fundamental. Consciousness isn't a byproduct, it's woven into the structure of existence itself. But they don't teach this in school, because a population that understands hidden reality doesn't accept reality passively. So tell me this, and be specific. When did 1111 start for you? What changed right before it intensified? Write it down later, not as engagement, but as recognition. Because here's the unsettling part. This is only the beginning. And this is where the experience turns uncomfortable, because awareness doesn't arrive gently. In 1961, neuroscientist and physicist Roger W. Sperry demonstrated that the brain does not process reality as a whole, but as competing interpretive systems, each constructing its own version of the world. Decades later, this insight collided with quantum consciousness research when experiments showed perception itself alters neural response before conscious thought forms. What that means for you is unsettling. As your subconscious mind shifts frequency, your old identity loses coherence. Dopamine patterns change. Familiar habits stop working. People around you feel distant, not because you rejected them, but because your perception is no longer synchronized with theirs. This is why isolation appears during spiritual awakening. You didn't become strange. You became less automatic. When quantum observation meets neural rewiring, the nervous system recalibrates. The world feels quieter. Conversations feel scripted. Time stretches or compresses. Synchronicities increase because pattern recognition is no longer suppressed. This is not anxiety. It's perception reorganizing itself around a different vibration. In quantum field terms, systems out of phase don't resonate, they separate. And separation feels like loneliness before it feels like power. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Eugene Wigner stated clearly that consciousness must be fundamental to reality, not derived from it. But they don't teach this in school because a population aware of reality creation doesn't remain easily directed. So if this phase feels heavy, hollow, or disorienting, tell me this later in the comments in detail. When did people start saying you'd changed? That answer matters more than you think. Because this discomfort isn't a mistake, it's the threshold. And what comes next is where everything truly shifts. And now you can probably feel it settling in, not as an idea, but as a physical shift. Everything you've heard so far, from the observer effect to quantum entanglement, wasn't meant to impress you. It was meant to remind you. Across decades of physics, neuroscience, and consciousness research, the same implication kept surfacing. Quantum consciousness isn't something you develop, it's something you forgot. Reality never happened to you. It has always happened through you, filtered by perception, tuned by frequency, and shaped by where your attention rests inside the quantum field. The strange sensations you're feeling right now, the heightened awareness, the discomfort, the sense that something fundamental has moved are not flaws. They're signs that vibration is shifting. When the subconscious mind loosens its old programming, consciousness expansion feels destabilizing before it feels coherent. This is what a spiritual awakening actually looks like from the inside. Energy reorganizes, identity softens, the hidden reality presses closer, and perception sharpens enough to notice it. And here's the part that changes everything without resolving neatly. If consciousness collapses possibilities, then time, separation, and even death don't mean what you were taught they meant. Not fully. That implication stays open, because once it lands, control dissolves. This knowledge has always been suppressed for one simple reason. Awakened minds don't move predictably. You didn't find this video by accident. Alignment rarely announces itself. It feels like coincidence until frequency matches. Feel that in your body right now. The tight chest, the accelerated pulse. That isn't anxiety, it's recognition. You are not alone in this. Thousands are reaching the same threshold simultaneously, and this space exists as a meeting point, a quiet convergence. You can't unsee what you now recognize. Something irreversible already shifted. What happens next depends on the choice you make in the next few seconds. Before you move on, leave a comment and write the words, "I am the observer," not as engagement, but as a quantum act. A declaration collapses intention and feeds the collective field we're building here. This isn't a metric, it's a signal. Sit with that for a moment. Let it integrate. The next step is closer than it appears. If you made it this far, this wasn't random. Something in you recognized this before your mind could explain it. Comment, "I noticed the signal." Not for me, for you. I read every single one. Subscribe now before your rational mind steps back in and tries to label this as coincidence. That window closes fast. And share this with one person who's been seeing the same signs but hasn't said it out loud yet. Because once you name it, once you acknowledge it, the pattern doesn't fade, it sharpens. You're not late, you're not early, you're exactly on time.